welcome back to Rewind Reviews. It's very nice to say that and not include the other word, the word that shall not be named. The name
The
of a
Wizarding
small,
World.
Shut up. There's a small wizard boy whose name will no longer be mentioned on this podcast. He is banned.
How much fun? Like, take everything out. Like, I don't know about you, but when I hit play, so for context for people that might not know, we've just done a series where we've done Harry Potter in the Rewind Reviews, where we've reviewed every Harry Potter movie, or Wizarding World movie, as they've retroactively been called by Warner Brothers, including the Fantastic Beasts movies. You can check that out. You can experience what happened. Spoilers, I mean, slowly we lost our minds because the films got, worse and worse. But, Dan.
Yes.
How incredible. Like that classic Disney logo.
Oh, I said to Nadia, why don't they do that anymore?
Like, the late 80s, early 90s feel of the opening. I'm like, Rewind Reviews is back, baby.
Yeah.
Like, I had such a fucking buzz for just, this is a movie from my childhood and we're watching it. I felt so good. And that feeling, and I have to say, I was worried we wouldn't be able to be objective. I have to say, the film and how heartwarming the film is then took over from that. It wasn't all about that. It's the film itself. But man, that opening, just that Disney logo, and just like, boy. Yeah,
it was nice to be back in familiar territory and doing a Rewind Reviews on a classic film from my childhood. Which, on that subject, Chris, what is your... So this week, for those who don't know, actually, we should clarify. Every week we do a classic film from our sort of like childhood or youth. We've cheated on that a couple of times. We've done movies that are a little bit more recent, but nothing crazy. But like, that's it. Look, made up rules. We can do what we want. But that's generally speaking what we do. We sort of see if it holds up or if there are any issues with it. It's been a really fun podcast. Now, how we choose the films is one of us chooses. We do that one, and then the next week the other one chooses. This was Chris's choice. Now, I said this at the time, and I'll say it again now. This was towards the top of my list. This was, mere episodes away from being.
If memory serves, you nearly chose it a week or so prior. So I literally went, right, I want to do that film. I know Dan wants to do that film. And it felt like the antithesis of Lord of the Rings, which we'd just done, and Harry Potter, which we were about to do. So, yeah, it felt like an accessible classic movie. And I'm sure you'd name-checked it as a film you nearly chose, and that made me go, right,
I think last season we did that thing where I gave you a choice of two. I was like, we can do a classic film, or we can do so there was another category, a film that relates to the film we just watched. And afterwards I said to you, the classic would have been, had we chose it, Cool Runnings or something like that.
Yeah, I think Last Action Hero was the choice, was the one that
you're right,
won
that's
out.
right. That's right.
Yeah. So,
what is your? So what we usually do is we usually have a look at our history with the film. So, what is your history with the movie Cool Runnings?
It was one of those films. Like I have memories of me and my sister being like, "Can we watch Cool Runnings?" and it being a film that we enjoyed watching together. A film that we would choose that Mum and Dad would also be willing to watch again, and we had. I will. It's quite a few weeks until this is going up, so I will see if I can get home and if it's still there, although I'd have to dig through a massive box. It probably won't be. But we didn't have it on VHS. We had a taped version of it from the television, and my appalling childhood handwriting said on it, Cool Runnings. And it was one of those, there were a few tapes that you didn't even do the taking off that little black lip on the front of the tape to make it non-recordable. You just didn't. It was one of those tapes that just wasn't touched, and it was one of those recorded tapes that lived with the non-recorded purchased VHS tapes. Like that's sort of that elevation. It was that level of recorded tape. It sat with. It wasn't in the pile of tapes that could get rubbed over. It wasn't in anything like that. It was next to.
Look, Chris, this is a family podcast. Let's not talking about things getting rubbed over.
Yeah, but that's not what this erased probably would be the better phrasing. But that's not what you called it as a kid. You called it, someone's rubbed over my episode of Kenan and Kel or whatever. So yeah, it was one of those films, man. What about you?
Yeah, very similar. I think this was one of those. Started as a film it was described to me and I was not particularly interested in, but the neighbor that I hung out with really wanted to watch it, so we watched it, and obviously I loved it, and then proceeded to rent it multiple times for a couple of years, before I actually had a copy of my own. And then similar to yourself, I had I did that thing. We might have talked about this before, but my favorite thing every year, I used to love the TV guide for Christmas. Because what I would do is I would make so at least once or twice my parents buy 2 copies so I could do this scot-free, where basically I would
brought 2 copies every year.
Really? Yeah, okay. I don't know if we did it every year, but I think we did it one year where we had one and I defaced it, making notes for myself of what to record and when. Because basically I turned the TV guide into I wish to pirate all of these things so I have copies of them forever. And I made my parents buy me a bunch of blank tapes, long play. That they function fine for long play. Six hours recording instead of 3. I'm not a fucking fool. And then I would basically, each tape would have, I don't know, 2 or 3 movies on, depending on the length of the movies. Cool Runnings was on one of those tapes. And I one year it was in the TV guide. I was so excited I would finally get a copy of it, and I noticed it and recorded it, and then that ran that tape through many a time over the years. Weirdly though,
do you remember?
Go on.
Do you remember? So just interrupt you. Do you remember when you put a long play tape in a short play player, and it just had that black squiggly lines over it and stuff?
Yeah, and it would go really fast, and the sound would be all weird and squiffy.
Yeah. I wonder if someone's uploaded footage of that. Yeah, sorry, Karen.
So the I forgot what I was gonna say. I can't remember. What was it? Oh yeah, this is weirdly. Man. This is one of those films where even though I loved it as a kid, I've not really gone back to it much as an adult, which is really strange because so many of the movies we've covered, I was just glancing down the list for this exact point, I have gone back to in adult life. I've seen Wayne's World a good couple of times over the years. What else? Maybe similar categories. Actually, I think it's actually quite similar to Space Jam. I don't really think I go back to Space Jam very often, but movies like Little Shop of Horrors I go back to all the time. Gremlins, Star Wars. These are movies I just kept watching through my adult life. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I watch that every couple of years, regardless. This is one of those movies where, as much as I love this film, for some reason, I've just never really, I don't remember the last time I saw this movie. I reckon at latest college. I don't think I've seen this since I was at college. So it's a long time. But what's incredible was rewatching it on this occasion, I realized how much of this movie was embedded in my brain, how much of this movie was iconic. Everything from, Feel the Rhythm, Feel the Rhyme to Buckingham Palace and The Lucky Egg, and when every time he can't get the helmet on and he knocks the helmet on and thanks coach, all of that stuff was just so ingrained in my DNA. I was I watched this with Nadia and I kept saying scenes, what would happen, and I was like, oh, I remember this is the scene where this happens, and she's like, yeah, I remember that, and I'm like, yeah, but it's incredible. I've not seen this movie for so many years, and yet I at least 15 years, I think, maybe more. Somewhere between 15 and 20 years since I last saw this movie, and I'm there oh, this is the scene, look, watch out, in a second their hats have switched. My brain is running ahead. I must be in a nightmare to watch this movie with. It worth noting, Nadia was only half watching it because she was getting ready to leave, so I wasn't ruining a movie-going experience for her. She was...
What, leave you? Because you should have been fighting to keep her more than watching Cool Runnings. I know we had this scheduled in, Dan, but, come on.
Well, it's been a long time coming, let's be honest.
In fact, she's leaving you because of the mood you've been in watching the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, it's been 11 weeks coming.
Yeah. And you're like, but this, don't you see, by watching Cool Runnings, I'm going to get out of that mood. She's like, I've had enough, Dan.
But just give me one more day. No, Dan, I know what movie you've chosen next. So let's do. So both got, and I had a similar thing. Weirdly, I think I think it's a movie every couple of years, every kind of 3-4 years. I go, we should watch Cool Runnings, because Jess was like, I haven't seen this film in ages, and I was like, I'm pretty sure we've watched it together, like in this house, but I might be wrong. It might be one of those things where I've gone, we should watch Cool Runnings, and then gone, probably going to do that for rewind reviews at some point, so better not watch it yet. Does that happen a lot? I've not really had that.
Yeah, no, I've had that with one or two things for sure.
Oh, you know what? No, that's not 100% true. I remember saving Little Shop of Horrors for rewind reviews.
Yeah.
I think I remember having the hankering to watch that sooner than we ended up doing it, but I knew a series of rewind reviews was coming up or something.
Yeah. So for those that haven't seen the film, we'll do we recommend? I absolutely recommend this movie. Like, we'll get into it, but if you've not seen it, pause, watch, come back.
Yeah. It's available on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus. It's only 1 hour 38 minutes, and it's pure joy, baby. There are things that there are nitpicks which we'll discuss, but it is heartwarming. It is funny. It is. It'll make you feel warm inside.
Yeah, ironically, considering it's set in the cold. But for those who don't know what it's about, very like a sort of one-line summary, just in case you're interested. It is very, very loosely based on the real story of the Jamaican bobsled team who went to the Calgary Winter Olympics in '88 and made a real splash with the public. People were very endeared to this team, and as a result, they sort of have adapted that premise into a movie. The story is very different. We'll get to it in Triv, or maybe sooner. I don't know. But yeah, it's about the struggles of a team from a country not really known for their bobsledding, moving into that, and it is ultimately a pretty straightforward sort of Disney family movie that's also a sports movie. You've seen movies like this, I'm sure, if you haven't seen this, but that doesn't detract from this is like almost the gold standard of these sort of family friendly sports movies. There was an era for this, and this was it, and this is the gold standard. This is the movie you judge all those movies against, I think. It's great. It's really good, and I think its enduring popularity is. It is endearing, but it's I meant the word enduring. Is a real testament to the quality of this feature and the people involved in making it. We'll get into more specifics in a minute, but yeah, I'm also echoing Chris's recommend. I think it's funny and heartfelt and sweet and iconic and really well put together and tight as I cannot tell you how tight this script is. It's just like almost to a fault in one or two places where I go, maybe that could have used an extra minute or two. Like maybe let's not be quite so, but not really. Like it's really good at just getting to its point in a way that feels convincing, but like, yeah, really, really sort of well sort of structured. Which isn't this it's not the sexiest way to describe a film. Was it any good? Oh, it was so well structured. Like, no one wants to hear that, but it is actually an incredibly well structured movie.
It just means that does
increase the experience, I think.
It just means there's no fluff. Do you know what I mean? There's not. It feels like Dan says. It feels like it's had a great script editor, but at the same time, every character has a journey. Every of the 5 main characters, They all go on a journey, both in, it feels like they've learnt something, and it feels like plot-wise they've gone on a journey, which, recent films we've done have struggled with that. And it
doesn't feel like there's a single wasted line either. Like, every single thing that happens in this movie has a purpose. They don't, fight some cats for 10 minutes because the movie decided they need to fight some cats for 10 minutes.
No, not at all. And even like everything is either funny or propelling the plot or the character arcs forward.
Yeah, not a wasted beat.
No. So there you go. We recommend Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings.
If you've not seen it, huge recommend. take a pause, watch. If not, let's dive in. I feel like is there one topic to just hit first? Is there one potential sort of historical awkwardness to talk about, Dan? Should we do that first?
Sure.
Well, that's the fact that so much of this film is about Jamaica and Jamaican culture and its importance and the people of Jamaica, and the four leads are all American actors.
Right. Yeah. What's the problem, Chris? That sounds great.
Do you think did it watching it in a modern context? There were a few moments like when it played at first. Jess was like, "Are these guys Jamaican or are they putting on accents?"
So
and
yes.
Go.
Nadia had a similar comment, but hers was more about like, these boys maybe second generation Jamaican immigrants, maybe, so that they were able to do the accent very authentically because maybe they were I've Nadia and I both noticed this, but any sort of second generation immigrant seems to be able to do the accent from their sort of parents' country of origin well because they just do an impression of their parents. You grow up with a certain accent in your life, it's easier to just flick into it. I've noticed this is a lot of comedians will do like impressions of their parents, and if they happen to be second generation immigrants, they can just drop into it. Because Nadia's thought was, well, these are actually like sometimes when sort of when you get native Jamaicans speaking sort of patois, like it gets very fast. It can be hard to follow if you're not used to hearing it. So an American audience might have struggled. And she said, are these Jamaican actors? Her question was, are these Jamaican actors slowing down their accent a little bit to make it clearer for Americans? Or are these Americans doing a controlled version of a Jamaican accent to ensure that, a dumb American audience... I'd say that's not fair, but like, even your lowest level audience members who are just like casually watching it, or just like kids or whatever, can quite easily follow and hear the cadences and stuff. So I actually didn't end up looking into the origins of these actors. I'm actually not familiar with any of these actors other than John Candy, so I didn't know they were Americans.
I didn't research whether they were. Basically, the extent of my research is to click on each of their names and see American actor. Right. Maybe there is a Jamaican heritage. I don't know. I guess there is. It's that modern contexting, isn't it? Now, look, it is by no means. We've reviewed Short Circuit and Short Circuit 2 on here, so we've come across things before where it would never be. I don't think it would be done today. I think you would, if this film was being made today, you would have 4 Jamaican actors in the lead roles, not people putting on the accents. That isn't the case for when this film was made. So I don't think it like ruins any enjoyment of the film or anything. But I definitely had a moment of especially when I looked it up. Like I say, I will maybe do a bit deeper while you talk. But
I'm trying to figure it out now, just to see if there
cool.
happens to be anything in there that might clarify or not. Because I think I'd feel more comfortable about it if they were at least of Jamaican heritage. I think that would make me feel more comfortable about the situation. So I'm looking. It looks like Dougie Doug, who played Sanka, does have a Jamaican father.
Okay.
So I'm looking into the rest now, but that's a good start. I feel less uncomfortable about it knowing that, because that's the thing, isn't it? If it's American actors, you just got this element of like, if you really want to be pridefully showing off this culture, it might be more respectful to cast people who are part of it. But I guess we are talking about the 90s.
That is the thing, and that is a correct feeling that we have all come to over time, too late, but have come to it now, and accept and agree with in a modern context. This, alongside many films for many different reasons, reflects a decision that would have been made at the time that unfortunately is not that, and there is to do with sexuality, gender. There are so many examples of movies from the time that have so many things that can make viewers feel uncomfortable. And I think that, you know, it's kind of the short circuit conclusion of, yeah, that's uncomfortable now. It unfortunately is a result of the time and how much that can impact the view on the film is I guess a personal thing. But yeah, no, it is definitely uncomfortable, and there just were a few moments where I was like, oh, but you're not Jamaican. But I think that is a very modern context in which to view it.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, you know, to be fair, like it's not like the culture is explored in depth either. It's a light sort of sprinkling on top of what is otherwise a pretty sort of like straightforward, you know, family comedy that's a sports movie, you know. So yeah, I don't know. It's
yeah, and how much do we, you know, there's actors are still playing different nationalities and stuff today. Like, you know, it's just Jamaica's at the heart of the film, and that element of the film is done really well. That feeling of, you know, the footage of people watching it from at home in Jamaica is really impactful and stuff. So I think a movie now with that being as much a part of the film as it is here, they probably would have Jamaican actors. But they definitely wouldn't have in whatever year this film was made, which
93
is
1993. It was filmed, 94 it was released, I think, or I could be wrong on that, but
yeah, so
yeah, I'm unable
to
identify. I can't confirm the other actors because there's not enough information like on their wikis or in, you know, I've found information about like their families and stuff, but it's not specifically any details about like the exact sort of heritage, as it were. So I've not been able to confirm. But you know, look, either way, like I think, you know, you either explain it away with that was fine at the time, or you know they did at least have actors that had, you know, parents that were of that heritage, so it was at least sort of them getting to honor, you know, honor that way. So yeah, and I found a really sad post actually. So the guy that plays Yule, looks like he lost his mum last year, because I was just looking into the family history, and I found a post on that. That's very sad. He seems,
yeah, it's sad too.
Yeah, he ended his post with #dementia sucks, so that's awful. But also, at least being sort of at least a little bit sort of comedic about it.
Yeah, and that is awful, awful to hear, and I hope he's doing okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
However, there's never any easy jumping off point from that. But I've got a question for you, which I've just realised.
Yeah. So I'm sure we put a cap on that whole stuff and just say, look, it's fine. It's you know, I don't think there's anything too egregious in the casting choices and stuff. I think it's, you know, regardless of the thing, it's understandable. It's nothing anywhere near as egregious as something like Short Circuit, which is actually like full on like race swapping, like, you know, yeah. So I think this is fine. And also, let's not forget to marvel at the fact that this is a movie that's, you know, got 4 lead actors who are black, and the movie was a huge hit. And
in 1994, yeah, completely.
So let's you could give it the wins that it has, I suppose. Like, let's credit where credit's due, I suppose. But there you go. So yeah,
I agree. Here's my question, Dan. This is the start of what season of Rewind Reviews? Our fifth,
I think. Yeah,
fifth season of Rewind Reviews. 2 kids that grew up in the 90s.
Yes,
mate. Is this our first John Candy movie?
Did we do Home Alone yet?
I don't think we have done Home Alone, have we?
No, you know what? We don't think we have. Shit, is this our first John Candy movie?
I think this is our first John Candy movie.
That can't be right. That can't possibly be right. Let me look at the list. Let me quickly skim the list. Shit. All right. Well,
I think it might be. I check. Yeah, no, we've not done Home Alone. Yeah.
No. Wait, hasn't he got a small role in Jingle All the Way? Am I wrong? Am I making that up?
Yeah, Jingle All the Way was after he'd passed, wasn't it?
Oh shit! Yeah, it would have been by a couple of years. Yeah, you're right. Oh wait. Didn't he have a small part in Wayne's World?
Possibly.
No, maybe not. You know what?
No,
It'll be
according to
easier.
not.
That rather than going through our list and thinking, did he have a cameo in this movie? Let me check his actual.
Oh no, that's what I'm doing. I'm on John Candy's filmography, and I don't think
Nothing on here we've
the
done.
big guns.
Yeah, because we've not done Uncle Buck yet. Shit,
We've
no,
not
we
done
haven't.
National.
No.
Oh, Little Shop of Horrors. Apparently, he was in. Oh, we haven't done that, have we?
Yeah, we did Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, no, we've done Little Shop. Yeah.
Was he in Little Shop of Horrors? Who was he in Little Shop of Horrors?
According to his filmography, he was Wink Wilkinson.
Okay. So there you go. We have done a John Candy movie, sort of. Who is that? I'm gonna look that up. John Candy. Little
Yes,
Shop
so
of
that's
Horrors.
what.
Oh, he's the DJ. He interviews
Right,
Rick
yes.
Moranis. He's like the yes. Like when Rick Moranis has the plant, he's like the shock jock that Rick Moranis goes in and is interviewed by. Yes, he's excellent in that
Yeah.
scene. I love John Candy, but
He is good.
I'll put it this way: there's no way we're not hitting up Uncle Buck at some point. So
Or Home Alone, most likely.
yes, yeah, both of those two are like guarantees. So we're not done with John Candy yet, but yeah, obviously an absolute legend. Died way too young, and we'll talk more about him as we go. This has been a weird start. We've ended up talking about like the Jamaican heritage stuff and deaths and joke. Let's talk about this damn movie. This movie's like an absolute.
We did
joy,
also
and
we did
we're-
praise them. We did praise the movie for like 10 minutes. And tell
I know,
people to
but
watch
like the
it.
movie's such a joy, and when we've actually gone past the point into where we could do spoilers, we've just gone into like depressed mode. I'm gonna rewind us out of that. That's the boy who shall not be named shit. Let's not dig ourselves that hole. Yeah, so this movie is an absolute delight in every single way, and it starts almost immediately with like just energy and like I mean I hate to use the word color because obviously I do know that that's like, you know, almost a stereotype at this point. You know, the Caribbean islands, the very often when you look at the fashion there, particularly from this era, they're all very colorful. But like the movie is colorful, forgetting even the clothing that the actors are wearing. My God, like it's just such a like before they get to like Calgary, like they really do like make the you know Jamaica look like this extraordinarily like inviting place, like just visually speaking. Yeah, it's really well done. So immediately it feels warm and welcoming, and then you know we meet Sanka pretty quickly, and he's like obviously immediately the funny character, and it's interesting they start with him, and then go. Like in terms of having a thing to do in a scene, like you know, we see Darius. We see Darius like getting ready to go out, but the first character that's like talking and interacting to people that we see on screen, I believe, is Sanka, and he's talking to those kids before his pushcart race, and I think he's such a great intro to this, like the tone of this movie, like straight away, just like sort of silly, but also like. You know, they take the stuff they're doing seriously, even if like it might seem silly on the surface. Like tonally and thematically, it like goes straight in for that stuff. I think it's really, really funny. And I think that whole opening, you know, pushcart race does set the tone in a mini way for the entire movie. It's the story of the movie in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, which is really funny. Like, yeah, I hadn't noticed that, but you're right. It's literally the story of the movie.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's really funny. And then obviously it literally has the, you know, Sanka, you're dead, which is, you know, one of the funniest lines in the movie, often quoted for good reason. So that obviously then we move into like the more serious stuff of the film, which is like the actual attempt to do this. So for those who don't remember, they Darius wants to be a runner. He's tripped by Junior during the like qualifying races. Him and Yule, they're all tripped, and they're basically left not being able to go to the Olympics. And then there's this extraordinarily like like it's like it's probably like I'd say it's arguably the only scene in the movie that's really just like full on like bad dialogue, but it's the scene it's the scene where he's talking to the commissioner guy from the like Jamaican like athletics board, and he's like, "Who's this?" And he's like, "Oh, that's a bobsledder. He was convinced that a runner would one day make a good bobsledder. Really? And he lives on the island? Yes, he lives on the island. You could go see him if you wanted, I guess." It's just
it's just. This was, what's more egregious than that, though, because you're absolutely right. But what's more egregious is when that loops back round, because at the end, that last heartwarming, brilliant shot of the movie, I've never thought this before, but they take the photo, and the photo puts Pride of Place above the photo of John Candy and his coach and his dad running, and you think, oh my god, that's perfect. That's such a heartwarming way to end this film. And then you go, it is weird though, because that's going up in the office of a man that refused to support them.
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why is he putting that photo up?
Yeah. I love it. Like it's one of those things where that scene, to be fair to that scene, it does end with a great joke, which is this whole conversation about, what he thought there'd be a good bobsled team. He's like, "Oh, bobsled, okay, yeah," and they go through this whole conversation, and then he leaves and he sticks his head back in. He's like, "What's a bobsled?" That is a great gag. I enjoy that after they've had a whole conversation about it. I think like, again, this movie like it does not slow down. Like within a minute or two, we're meeting Irv, played by John Candy, who is the coach, who's the American. He's like a bookie on the island now, and they're trying to convince him, and they're trying to put the team together. And then there's like a montage of them being real bad at it, and then a montage of them, trying to like earn the money to go, 'cause it's going to cost a bunch of money. And then we start learning through all this, like, while all that's happening, which is, like, sounds like a bunch of, like, fun hijinks, and it is, like, the bit where he puts Sanka in the fridge because he wants to get him used to the cold. All that's really delightful. But then, like, also we're doing character stuff that entire time. Like, we're set up Junior and his relationship with his dad, which is really important to the rest of the movie. We sort of establish Yule's blaming of Junior for him not being there, which then creates one of the nicest character arcs in the movie, which is sort of Yule coming around to Junior, as a person, and those two starting to really like become good friends. And then we have obviously Sanka and Leon's relationship established really thoroughly, which is, Sanka is very relaxed. He will go with the flow, so to speak. But he'll, particularly speaking, even if he doesn't want to do something, he'll do it for Leon, because he's his best buddy. They've known each other since they were children. So, we're having a bunch of fun times, and the movie feels like it's super easy breezy. Like, oh, watch these, this ragtag group of guys that are not supposed to be in a bobsled, failing to get in a bobsled. Oh, they've crashed into a police car. And it's like, you're enjoying that because it's kind of silly and goofy. But like at the same time, actually, the movie's it's putting the work in, man. And I think that's true throughout the whole movie. Even when it's doing all the silly stuff, like it's usually doing something for the characters at the same time. I've talked a lot there. I'm gonna shut up.
No, I think you're right. No, it balances the tone perfectly. And I just think we've watched a lot of older comedies on here, and sometimes the jokes just don't hold up. But in this, they really do. Before we just name jokes, a good example of how what you were talking about there, how it can perfectly balance the two. The Buckingham Palace photo scene. Yes. So it gets revealed that
it's my favorite scene in the movie. I want to point this out now. This is my favorite scene in the whole movie, I think.
It's incredible. Like he brings out this photo, and it represents where he wants to get off the island. He wants to do something, and he wants to ultimately live in this big house. And to him, it's just a photo of a big house that represents that, and that's where he's going. And they start to laugh because it's Buckingham Palace, and they say, you in order to live there, you got to marry the Queen, and it's funny. And then he looks upset, and it just turns into this really sweet speech from, I can't remember the character's name. I didn't know if it was her? Junior, that's it, of course. And where Junior says, it's really important that people have dreams, and it's really important, like, if the more Yules that succeed, the better that is for Jamaica and for everyone. And then he unfolds the photo and he just puts the photo in front of him. And it is the perfect balance of drama and comedy in like 3 minutes. And this movie manages to weave its way between the two like that throughout.
And what's crazy about that as well is these are two characters that have been antagonistic thus far. You know, Junior cost Yule his place here. He cost him his place on the running in the running team. So Yule wants to. He like the first thing he does, like, you know, I'll join this team, but I won't be anyone's teammate. And he's like, you know, get him off me, get him away from me, constantly about Yule. And yet it's sorry about Junior, and then it's Junior that's the one that sort of sees him for who he is, right, and sees and appreciates him for who he is. You know, Sanka, you know, as Yule points out, you know, just sort of finds himself not really amounting to much and is thrilled about it. I think that's how he phrases it, something like that. You know, you're not doing much with your life and you're thrilled about it. Like, and I think that's a fair portrayal of what Sanka is as a character. But I also think, like, the great thing about Sanka as a character is he's never going to be fussed to hear someone say that about him because he doesn't give a shit. That's like literally the point. So it's just really interesting the way they use it is this way to sort of bond Yule and Junior, who like was so diametrically opposed ahead of that. So we've got this scene that's making me laugh and it's full of great jokes, and Sanka being Sanka. We're learning about Sanka's weird attitude towards everything, which is just he does not give a shit, which is great. But we're also building a character relationship between Junior and Yule, and we're also giving them both like sections of their own arcs, their own personal stories, all while being entertaining as a scene. Right, and heartfelt and sweet. Like, it's that scene is an absolute masterpiece of writing, top to bottom. I'm not gonna hear any different about it. Anyone says any different, I'm gonna come and find you, and I'm gonna cut the scene out of the movie, and I'm gonna put it on loop, and I'm gonna make you watch it like in the movie, in the Clockwork Orange with the eye things, so you can't not look at it, and I'm gonna make you watch it till you understand.
I don't think anyone is saying any different, are they, Dan?
I don't know. Well, I'm just warning. This is a preemptive warning. If you feel in that way, don't tell me because I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna Clockwork Orange you.
Mate, Wizarding World has fucked us up, man. You're like, if you disagree, I'm gonna put you in a room. There's gonna be a whirlpool, and that scene's gonna be playing in the whirlpool, and that whirlpool's gonna come up over you. Oh, God. Let's talk about are you willing, Dan, to jump to the ending?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Because I know that the team not actually succeeding has become a bit of a trope in sports movies. But I feel like it was probably quite fresh for the time. And it's therefore anytime those guys are bobsleighing, there's genuine tension on the screen. Like, I
don't want to contradict, but I will say, like, Rocky 1976 was like the big sport movie where the guy doesn't win, and it's more about the fact that he was able to compete. Like, it's, you know, that was 76, so this is what, 1993.
I mean, it feels like you're quite willing to.
It's about 17.
It feels like you're quite willing to what's the word?
Contradict. I didn't want to, but like I think I'm gonna have to. It's about 17 years too late, I think.
Well,
but I will say though, if you were a kid when you saw this and you didn't watch a lot of sports movies, that will have been a thing, I think, for sure.
If you're a kid and you haven't seen any other sports movie and you're sitting down in a jolly disposition to watch this movie and you've been told that they succeed, when they don't, it's probably a shock. No, but I think it's done so well. I think it's done so effectively because the movie manages to make you feel like it's setting them up for triumph and make you feel like it should go that way, and then pull the rug and it be dramatic as fuck, and then triumphant, like, through no dialogue a short while later. Like, and it is a magic trick. Like, the movie is not setting you up to, if you say to someone, you pause the movie halfway through and you turn to that kid who's never seen it before and hasn't seen other sports movies and has won every race they've ever run, and you say to them, this team's gonna lose. that kid's going to be like, what the fuck? How can that be a satisfying narrative? And you'll be like, you understand a lot about narrative, kid. You should get off the sports field and start typing, my friend. But do you know what I mean? The movie sets you up for a win, and the fact that they don't give you the win, give you the drama of that moment, it's horrendous. Like the way you only see it at first from the TV's point of view, and then when you cut back to the action, it's just the helmets going against the ice. It's so well shot and edited, and to go from the drama there, Chris, of that.
Well, sorry, just not to interrupt, but the keyword there is actually edited, because the footage from the TV's perspective is the real footage of the Jamaican bobsled team's crash. So, if you're watching the footage of that crash thinking that looks very authentic and very painful, yeah, that's the real footage. It's a really remarkable choice. I was very surprised when I first learned that footage is real. It's incredible. I certainly wouldn't have known as a kid. I would have found that out as a teenager or towards adulthood. But that it's real footage. But it's crazy good. Like it's edited in so seamlessly, and when you see it, it is shocking. It's upsetting because you're just like, but they were so close. They were so close, and like the lesson learned. And that whole I didn't write it down at the end. I wanted to write down the line. There's an exchange. I'll find it in a minute. I'll find the script. But there's an exchange between Irv and Derice before the final attempt to set a time, where they talk about what it's going to feel like to cross the line, and that really it is. The message of the movie almost is taking part is what matters, which is as simple as that sounds. The movie obviously gives it a lot more nuance than that, but like it is a very powerful thought, because it's what's great about this ending is your heart sinks because you realize it's all over. The second you start seeing that bolt loosen, you think, oh Christ, this is done, this is over, right? The thing falls off, the sled goes over, and all you're thinking is it's over. I'm gutted. And they give you, because they use the real footage and it goes on for so long, because it's not a slow crash. Let me tell you, it's not a quick crash. Let me tell you, it is a slow. They're on their side, just sliding down the track, losing momentum every second. But it's like 3 or 4 turns worth of just sliding through, losing speed. And the minute it stops, you just think, well, that's that then. And it's like, it's so heartbreaking. And then you realize what's going to happen. He sees the finish line in the distance, I guess. I don't 100% remember. And then he says, no, we're going to cross that finish line. And then, and they don't show you them. I don't think they show you them lifting it up. We cut to like the crowd or the commentators or whatever, or the people back in Jamaica. And then the next shot we see, they're standing tall, proud.
It's a almost POV shot of the responders moving out of the way. It's so effective.
Right.
It's such a clever decision, and it literally takes you from, this is my thing. It takes you from shock and horror and upset to triumphant in the fucking span of seconds. Mm-hmm. That's how good this movie is.
Yes. Yep, I agree.
Do you on the bolts now? This is a thought. I don't have an opinion on this. I think I do. I think they probably made the right call. Do you think, because I'm inclined to say a modern version of this or a version by a lesser writer would have embedded the tension of the screws and it being rickety throughout. So on an earlier bobsleigh moment, the bolt loosens a bit or something like that. But I think that would have taken away the shock and the horror of it. So I think they made the right call not to do that. But do you think there's a world where they considered that, or that should have been done even?
No, I think they got it right, because they do enough of like, it's a rickety bobsled just in general that, because what you want, ideal scenario is that you want the audience to be like, oh no, and shocked and upset the minute they see that screw coming loose, as it were, the bolt coming off. But you also want them to know that was a possibility, right? Without tipping them off that that's where it's going. Because if you do a shot earlier in the movie of that bolt being a bit loose, or you do that horrible thing a shitty movie would do where like someone's working on it, they got a wrench, and the guy goes past and goes, "Don't forget that bolt. It's real important." And the guy's like, "I won't." Anything like that. Any hint, any tease earlier than that of that specific bolt, I think you're giving away your ending. I think, and I think the way they balance it here, there's multiple lines about how rickety the bobsled is, which you just take as being part of they're underfunded, they're the underdogs stuff. You don't take it as a hint at where it's going. Whereas if they did anything really specific, you'd be assuming that's where it was going, I think. So for me, it's exactly the right amount. Like if the commentators once or twice refer to it as kind of a rickety sled, it's
which they do just before it crashes.
Oh, do they actually? Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, there's there is a balance to be struck there, and I think this movie gets it right. What do you think about all the training montages? Because like a good sports movie is often defined by its training montages. Obviously, again, we had Rocky in the 70s like defined that and like made that the thing. This movie's got 2 of them, I think. What did you think of those?
Yeah, because again, I think they were smart choices. The first one is training in Jamaica, and it's a bit rickety, but they get there. But they don't. It's not a training montage in a bad sports movie where within one montage they're completely there and ready. But you see it begin to come together, and then there's the one kind of after one of their really low moments with the fight and the pep talk from Coach, where it's in Canada, and it's more of a right, we're truly getting ourselves match fit. And I think what I really liked about that montage is it's been made clear that the only way to John Candy has that great speech about what the driver is and what that person's role is at the beginning. And it's in the moment. It's again, nothing is wasted in this movie. In the moment, it's played as a bit of a joke because you get to have Shankar go, yeah, no, maybe he could be the driver. I don't want to do it. Like, it's really funny. But actually, we then see that take place. He's not in the bar with them. He's in the hotel looking at the corners. He doesn't go to dinner. He's in the hotel looking at the corners. And I think that montage of them getting match fit in Canada, what's really nice is it's kind of right, that's the everyone on the same page. And that's what I was going to say. I really like that it's got moments like the bathtub thing, because that is them all having that ethos. They're not just training when they've got the ability to get on the ice at this point. They're doing runs around, they're getting up early, they're going for runs around Canada. They're in the hotel room and they're no longer going to the bar. They're no longer getting drunk and getting into fights. They're in the bathtub practicing the turns.
And it's after they get told off for the lowest that they flip a tradition on its head as well, because usually the movie tradition is that the coach wakes them up at 5 a.m. Come on, guys, you got to get up. And they're like, oh, we don't want to do sports because it's early. So instead of that, it's them waking the coach up at like 6 a.m. Like, come on, coach, rise and shine. And I think that's actually a really fun reversal of a very common trope. Are you now Googling frantically to see if there was a movie in the 70s that did that so you can...
No, not at all. No.
I was convinced that's what you were doing in that moment. I like that being flipped around personally. I think that's really good. I like that a lot. I think it works for these characters in a big
it's brilliant.
way.
And I think that again, nothing's wasted. The bathtub thing it's also a joke, but what it represents is so subtle and thought through that the script. It's just another example of how tight the script is. So I think the montages are great for that reason.
Yeah.
Do you think, here's a question for you. I return your question with a question. Do you think they do enough? Do you think having the father of Junior, presumably Senior, in the crowd at the end, but not necessarily having any dialogue or anything like that, do you think that is enough for that story to feel complete and feel like we've got everything from it? The Junior and his father sort of disagreement.
As a kid or even a teenager, I would have said yes. I think on rewatch, maybe not, because the problem I had now was that it kind of plays like, well, you're winning now, so I'm on your side.
I think it plays more like that with the Jamaican Olympic official than the dad.
Oh, yeah, because I guess the dad is supporting them even in their failure, because he's the one cheering as they're walking over the finish line, I guess.
So he's stayed there, and he also he doesn't switch just because they're doing well. Because I think the exchange where he's like, "You have to come home," or maybe that's just after they've done badly. But like the Olympian guy is literally like he appears in the bar when they start doing well. Like he's the ultimate like
because the guy from, I guess he's like from the athletics committee or whatever. Yeah, his whole thing, like the first day when they don't do as well, and he like grumpily turns off his TV. I'm like, dude, 10 minutes from now you're gonna be in a shirt in the bar cheering them on. So fuck you.
I think I maybe would have liked a scene between a dialogue scene between Senior or Junior, and I tell you what, part of it is actually nothing to do with Senior. I don't think that's the character's name, but I'm gonna stick with it because it's more to do with Junior. Because I don't think Junior, because the script is so tight, and this is an example when you said in some instances maybe a bit too tight. I thought of this scene because
I have another example I want to talk about, but you might be about to name the same one.
No, I'm just finishing my thought on this. So Senior's in the shirt and he's showing support, and that's a brilliant moment. But because they chose to resolve that story within the triumph of them walking over the line, Junior's not really able to react to it. He looks emotional in the moment, but then he faces forward and, he looks determined, and they cross the line and they hug and all of that stuff. I think the script has set up a world where all his life, Junior's been afraid of his father, and then finally, in the hotel, in the elevator, he stands up to him, and it's this really impactful moment. Now, for me, you've created a world where when his dad then turns around and says, I support you, that's going to mean a lot to Junior, and it's going to lead to a reaction from Junior. In reality, Junior is almost in tears as they cross the line, and then he runs straight to his dad. But he can't, because what the film needs him to do for the wider story is to be with the team, take the photo, and all of that stuff. So I think maybe actually that I almost wanted some dialogue. Maybe instead of seeing him as they walk, they cross the finish line, they're greeted by everyone, he's greeted by his father, they exchange some words, they have a hug, and then his father goes, go, be with your teammates, and pushes him to his teammates in a more supportive way than we've seen. I think that feels a bit. I think this is an example where the tightness of the script means that doesn't quite get the resolution it should have, and something like that would maybe give it that conclude that story better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, yeah, you're right. It's more about the ending than it is about the actual payoff itself. It's like you do feel like you need another moment with them together. But yeah, the script is tight to a fault in a couple of moments, and I think the other sort of a more egregious example is, so the whole, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, the premise of one of the parts of this movie is that they're not particularly welcome because the various sledding committees or whoever, the people that run these things, think the Jamaican team are making a bit of a mockery of the sport, right? So they want them out, and they try in a few different ways to make it difficult for them. They, last minute, decide to change the rules on qualifying so it's harder to qualify for them. They make it difficult in a number of ways. And then finally, when that all fails and they qualify anyway, they then change the rule so that you have to have raced in an international race prior to the Olympics, which used to include the qualifying for the Olympics itself, but now doesn't, presumably directly to get them out of the sport, because presumably all the other teams have easily been racing in other, international races and would not have a problem making that as a qualifying, but they've literally found a little rule specifically to rule them out, right? So the way it works out in the movie, that's my understanding of what's going on in the movie, right? Then we get 2 scenes pretty much back to back. No, it's 3. Scene 1, they're all around, celebrating qualifying, happy days. The letter comes in that tells them they've changed the rules and they're basically disqualified. Then we get John Candy, kicks in the door, gives an epic John Candy speech. It's a very good speech. And then the next scene, he's on the phone. And he's like, we're back in. Now, my question to you, Chris, is, one, what is the purpose of that? If we're going to create a problem and then immediately resolve it. And two, do you think John Candy's speech is in itself enough when we've already demonstrated earlier in the movie how much these people want rid of the Jamaican team? Does a rousing speech about letting those boys wave their flag really going to change their minds on this matter? And is it convincing enough? It's so short. It is just those 2 or 3 scenes. Did it need to be more? Did it need to be less? Did John Candy need to be more specific in his speech? Use something a bit more concrete? Like, that's fine. You don't want to let him in. We'll see if the press enjoy hearing about this. Something like that. So it's a bit more of you can see how he coaxed them round. Because otherwise, I don't really understand how he got them back in.
Yeah, I think I didn't bump up against is the speech enough, because for me the speech hit 2 things. One was the stuff where he basically embarrassed Kirk and was like, look, if this is about you and me, like, I'm sorry, but don't let your feelings about me come out, don't take them out on the boys. They've done nothing here. And, he is, passionate about the sport. I think he would be able to see that. And I think it impacted the table for that brilliant line. And I'm so glad, it was acknowledged, where he says, oh, sorry, I didn't realise 4 black men in a sleigh were going to embarrass you, or whatever it is, in a bobsleigh, whatever the line of dialogue is. But that's such powerful dialogue, basically shaming the room and being like, what the fuck? Why are you embarrassed? So for me, I think those 2 things, he worked the room as a whole, and then he went for Kirk directly, which kind of felt enough for me. I do very much agree, though, that because it's over so quickly, and because actually we don't ever get the comeuppance of the room as a whole. We see Kirk change his mind and clap at the end, and that's a very sweet moment. But it doesn't, we don't, everyone else, the snooty British guy, we don't see him being proved wrong. So I think, does it need to be in the script? Does it add anything long-term to the script? Not really. You could have engineered another scenario for John Candy to give Kirk the speech, I think.
Right.
No, I don't think. The false tension of you're out, big argument, you're back in, it's, it doesn't take up enough, it's over so quickly. It slightly maybe just adds to the pile of ways they're getting shat on.
Right.
And you can make an argument from that point of view. But I think probably not.
Yeah, I think you convinced me with the I didn't realize, 4 black kids in a bobsled could make you blush, which I think is the line.
Is that the line? Yeah,
I think it is. I've not got it in front of me, but that's my memory of it. But yeah. So whatever that line is, it's in that ballpark. Yeah, that's a really good line. And actually, now anything occurring in the movie that removes that, not worth it.
Yeah, it's a really
I'm happy to have an extra obstacle that's then immediately solved for whatever reason, be a slightly bumpy narrative thing, if it means we're getting a line like that. And you're right, we would, rather than having the bumpy narrative thing, he maybe could have just done the speech anyway. Maybe they'd gone to the press. Oh, you know what? There is a way to fix this where you can have your cake and eat it too. You know what the actual answer is? Instead of a messenger coming by with a "you're disqualified" thing, the paper gets delivered, and Kirk's gone to the press and said that he thinks they're a sham, publicly. And then John Candy kicks in that door, gives that speech to the board exactly as is, and leaves.
Yeah, so you don't have the dramatic tension of they've been kicked out, but you do have the reason for him to give the speech and the reason to make Kirk think about what he's doing.
And if anyone's
you are right, by the way.
And if anyone's wondering why would you want to remove the dramatic tension, it's because the resolution feels sort of cheap and quick. Because the next scene, it's like, here's a phone call, we're back in. It just, there's a barrier of logic there. There's a sort of a slight hiccup in the believability of it in that moment, where you just go, wait a minute, I don't really buy that you've changed their minds with a rousing speech. You know, there's but also so quickly. You know, So you take that out, then you get to have the speech, you get to have them being shat on. You know, but also like you get to have the kick-ass John Candy moment, but you don't have that little bump of logic that comes with it. For me,
because you could even, and you were right, by the way. The line is, "Oh, forgive me, I didn't realize 4 black guys in a bobsleigh could make you blush." Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, if you do what you've described, you're kind of shitting on them more. Because even when they triumph, still the rest of the sport is shitting on them. Still, the officials aren't giving them the time of the day. They're still being disparaging, even when they qualify like everyone else. You know, there's that. I think the song is called Moonlight. I think Jay-Z's got a song, and it references the Moonlight Oscar scandals. And the line is, even when we win, we lose, or something like that. And it's just really powerful. And it's sort of that idea, that line would be represented in that idea. The idea that they triumph, but still the sport thinks they're a joke and goes to the press and says that, you know?
Yeah.
Whether that then contradicts with the crowd getting behind them, who knows? But yeah.
Well, no, I don't think so, because I think the idea of I think that's the thing, isn't it? That the officials, people in the sport, could see them as a joke at the same time as the general public opinion being, oh, I think it's delightful that Jamaica have a bobsled team and they're trying, and, you know, like the public get it and know what they're going for and respect the effort and love the team, which is what happened in real life. You know, but you can have, I don't think it's a contradictory thing to have that alongside the industry people feeling it's a bit of a joke. You know, the stuffy industry guys not seeing the potential of I mean, because this is the thing. In real life, they were welcomed. IRL, the industry, the sledding people, they were thrilled to have them there. And the reason, if I'm being honest, isn't because they were excited to see those boys from Jamaica do well and hold their flag up with pride or whatever. It got them a lot of press. It was more watched than it usually was. Bobsledding, right? So they were happy, maybe for the wrong reasons, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. You know, they were generally embraced by both the community and the other teams, and, you know, the bobsledding officials or whatever. They were happy for them to be there. Again, for whatever reasons. I suspect certainly for the officials, probably just because they were bringing them a lot of press, but whatever, it's fine. Okay. You know, that's the reality of what actually happened when Jamaica took a team to the Olympics. But in the movie, for the context of the movie, I think it's perfectly satisfactory and sensible to say, oh, the stuffy suits up in the world of bobsledding find them to be an embarrassment because they don't get it. But the public, Joe Public, you know, they relate to these guys. They're the underdogs. They like them. You know, I think that makes sense. I buy that.
And then you kind of, you maybe even then explore the fact that gets on the competitors' noses even more.
Right.
You know, the other teams go into it being the public darlings, and then it's kind of a sportsman jealousy thing as well that makes them
even more angry
against the Jamaican team.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of fun. I mean, look, what for anyone here going like, this is like a classic movie, you guys are trying to like rewrite parts of it. I'm just talking about small little changes, fractional differences. Obviously, this is an incredible movie. I'm not trying to say I could have written a better movie, but there's that, you know, that's a potential solution to one little bump that I had with the film.
I genuinely think this is one of the best movies we've done on Rewind Reviews.
Really?
Yeah, mate. We're talking nitpicks. The joy, the way the comedy holds up. Like, did it not just make? And maybe it's Wizarding World bias, but it just filled me with so much joy, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean, Star Wars, Back to the Future, Little Shop of Horrors, Groundhog Day, Shawshank.
Yeah, one of the best. The best, you know. It doesn't. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about, you know, it being one of the best. I'm not saying the best. I'm not saying.
No, I know, but I think there are quite a few movies ahead of it in the list of the ones we've done. But you know, it's still in the top half for sure. It's definitely. You know, if we're going by that sort of like broader logic, I think, yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's in sort of the top 5 or 10 though. I don't think.
I never said that.
No. But I'd say one of the best implies it's in the top couple. But yeah, I take your
You
point.
know me, Dan. When I say best, I mean an even top 100, my friend.
Fair enough. But yeah, so I look, it's an incredible movie. I think there's so much to love about it. I think, you know, a couple of weird like things that maybe play out a little quicker than you would maybe hope. Aside, it's so enjoyable. This cast is amazing. The script is tight as shit. There's, you know, even stuff that I think like, so another example of like something happening really quickly, but I just don't mind at all, is turning the coach around. You know, at the beginning he's like trying to hit them with a pool cue, and about 2 minutes later he's their coach. And like, I honestly,
Yeah,
like,
'cause I think
I never question it any time I've watched it.
because I think because it's such a, from a script point of view, it's such a genius shorthand to basically, they've set up the photo, we know the photo, and he just keeps the card of the photo and his dad until the very end, and then he slides it across and he says, "I'm his son, and you said this was possible." And John Candy looks at the photo. He not only sees, you know, the fact that he was trying to convince his dad to do this and his dad wouldn't. He also sees himself, and there's that amazing shot, which just from a filming point of view, to film a reflection is difficult because obviously you've got to avoid also getting the reflection of the camera. So he sees himself as a young man and the person he used to be, and he sees himself in the reflection, and he sees the person he's become, and he goes, and he doesn't completely go, "This is gonna work." He goes, "All right, let's give this a try." It's such clever writing because it's so layered. It's about what's being said, it's about the photograph, it's about the reflection. There's so many components that are all working for the same thing in that moment. It's just really, really tight writing.
Yeah, I would agree. I have a couple of quick things that I want to ask you about, just out of my curiosity. That I've remembered there's a third montage that we've not talked about, which is the montage of them trying to make the money, raise the money to go. Now, in real life, they got the funding through the Athletics Commission, like normal. But obviously, you know, that's not as entertaining for a movie. They've changed the story quite a lot. The characters aren't the same people either. We'll come to that when we get to Triv. But they have a whole little montage of them raising money, which I think is a very, very funny montage. Little icky with the kissing thing, but I was curious on your thoughts on that montage particularly.
Yeah, I think it helps. It helps again, typewriting. One, it helps reinforce their determination, and two, it's funny. But three, it reaffirms who each of these characters are. Mm-hmm. You know, the guy who at the beginning, Yul, he's all about himself, and he's not doing anything with the rest of them to raise the money. He's doing arm wrestles because he's tough and he can do it all himself, and he's arm wrestling. And then by the end of the movie, he's a part of a team, and he refers to them as his teammates, and he's G'ing Junior along and stuff. With Junior, you know, you see him. Well, I don't know how much he's in that montage actually, because obviously the selling of the car is a surprise.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think he really does a lot in that montage, to be fair.
Yeah. With Shankar, he's getting the laughs and stuff. So yeah, I think that immediate approach and the way that montage begins, I love as well. Does give up mean anything to you? Not a thing. Like, and then we just go into this triumphant montage of them trying to raise the money. Yes. So yeah, no, I think it, like everything in this movie, it reinforces multiple things and is doing multiple things.
Yeah. Let me ask you about a potential. Now, I'm not sure how I feel on this, which is why I'm going to ask you your thoughts and see if you can maybe egg me on either side of it. Part of me on this viewing wondered about the having I've got the character's name, Irv. Having had him be a cheater in his previous race, you know, putting the weights in the front of the sled, and have his medal stripped from him. I think maybe in a worse movie, I don't know, maybe even a better. I don't know if it's a worse or a better movie, but I think in a different movie, that's a reason for the team to fall out with the coach. stop trusting the coach, right? And I do kind of, part of me respects them for not doing that. But part of me wonders if they should be a little angry to discover that, right? You know, they've trusted this guy to get them there, and he's not been completely honest about his own history.
Well, I think so. In a real worse movie, they then make you doubt whether the coach is going to cheat again, and it didn't. And weirdly, at one point in my memory, I thought that was part of it. Like, but it isn't. Like rewatching it, it's like, oh no, that's not part of it at all. So I think there's an even worse case scenario. To be fair, I think that doesn't bother me particularly because one, that we don't know they all know. Derice finds out in that scene. We don't know that he tells the others. So in terms of anger from the team as a whole, there's nothing to say they definitely know. And Derice does confront him about it. Derice does say, "Why did you cheat? I don't understand it." So I think, do you know what I mean? The person that finds out does, not in an angry way, but does confront the idea to the coach, to Irv.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because they do use it. They just use it in a different way, right? Because it's used to push Derice and Irv's relationship and the story forward.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like Irv's acknowledging it when he says to them, you know, they hate me, they hate you. So these guys are bonded. Like, you know, Irv is an underdog like them as a result of that. And I think, you know, also from a practical point of view, what other option do they have? And by that point, they've been training with him. You know, they're bonded with him. I don't know if it would be. He's not cheated this time. And so I don't think it would be in the spirit of the movie for them to confront him in an angry way. I think it's Derice saying, "What's that about?" Which is what happens, which is what we do see.
Yeah, no, I think
That's
you're right.
my
I think that's
view on
right. I think I agree. I want to just shout out my favorite line of dialogue from the movie. I tried to remember it earlier and I hadn't written it down. I was annoyed at myself. It's in the scene where they talk about the cheating, and he says, "I don't understand, coach." And he says, "You know, you had 2 gold medals. You had it all." And Irv responds, "Derice, a gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it." And let me tell you,
how many movies since have tried to encapsulate that idea and mimic it.
Yeah, like I'm gonna tell you right now, this simple, low-budget, family-friendly Disney sports movie about the Jamaican bobsled team did not need writing that good. No one needed to try this hard with this movie, right? No, you know, it just could have been a fun, goofy movie without any real like weight or heart to it, and it would have probably made the same amount of money. Wouldn't have had the legacy. I think the legacy is a result of its quality, but in terms of its just, you know, profits in the moment, you know, that fetishizing of weekend box office that we do, the same number of people probably still would have seen this in the box office that weekend, that opening weekend, regardless of how its quality. It's such good writing, and it is better writing than a movie like this usually gets. And I think everyone who is involved in this deserves like full on like applause, slow claps all around, because it is remarkable.
Yeah. Even what comes up on the screen as the end, you know, let me get the exact phrasing correct. The Jamaican bobsleigh team returned to their country as heroes. 4 years later, they returned to the Olympics as equals. Like, oh, so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
So, great movie. What a little note, just a tiny note. I don't have too many notes on this one, but I loved the bar scene with the fight. Everything about that scene, top to bottom, is amazing. It's another one of those scenes where the comedy and the character stuff is all built in, and it's done really well. You get Sanka dancing with that girl, and then they've swapped hats. That's a really fun little detail. You know, we've got the really comedically evil like German team being evil, and then you know it leads to a bunch of character stuff for Junior and Yule, and then it leads to the fun bar fight scene, which is just an absolute like insane, really weird, like sort of joyous thing. Like they literally crack each other on the head with balls, which is like really dangerous, but like it's played for like full on laughs, and it's done really well. And I love that it's not the coach initially telling them off. He does show up and tell them off, but like it's actually, you know, it's Darius just like initially yelling at them. So yeah, like really
yeah, because again, someone took the time to go, okay, well that speech about the driver doing this, we can show that by have the other three get into a fight that Darius isn't there for. Here's a question for you, Dan. Yeah. So, what I was talking about earlier, where one of the reasons I love this movie is because very rarely do you have a film with, you know, arguably 5 principal characters, and they you know go through a journey. Darius learns that he doesn't need the medal. It's about, you know, pride in yourself and taking part and stuff like that. Yule learns that actually he can be part of a team and he wants to be part of a team, and he learns to love his teammates. Junior learns to stand up for himself and be independent, and be, you know, from his father and be bold and be a badass. Irv learns to forgive himself and that he can do some good, and that you know, his original idea was right and that there's no need to cheat. So here's my question for you. Mm-hmm. Do you think Sanka has a clear arc? And if he doesn't, do you think that he is so the comic relief and the best friend throughout that maybe he doesn't need as much of an arc? Or do you think he has got an arc? What's your view on Sanka's character development?
I think it's a situation of he doesn't need the arc. That's my... I think he's a really great character. He doesn't really have too much of an arc, but that's kind of the point with him. Because he, of this team, despite his goofiness, despite his playing around all the time, he almost sometimes comes across as the only member of this team that knows who he is.
Yeah, completely.
And I think, you know, having him go through a big life-changing arc midway through or throughout this film would probably undercut that idea. You know, unless you want to make the story that he doesn't know who he is.
Well, especially as well because he's got the purest reason to be there. He's not even on the team necessarily for his athletic ability. Yeah, he's got, you know, the experience of racing and stuff, but he's being put in a different position, and he's fundamentally there because he's Darius's best friend.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, like from my perspective, I think, you know, he's one of those weird characters that just like his purpose is so I'm not even sure how to phrase it. Like his purpose is so clear. I don't really for me it's unnecessary to do anything else with him. And also I think you would cloud the movie, but this, you know, it's a really tight movie. Like, what would you add? Even if you could prove to me, oh yeah, he needs an arc, he could benefit from an arc, let's do an arc. Like, I'm going, okay, cool, but like, what is that? Like in terms of like, what is that adding to the overall story? How much time are we losing to it? Like, it's already such a tight movie. Do we really want to affect the pacing? Like, you know, even if you said, oh, there's a really good arc for him, how long of the movie is it taking? There are 4 characters in this movie that deserve them. So, like, 5 really were Irv as well. You know, so for me, I think he's perfect doing what he's doing. Because he's, you know, he's... Because also, we've not even talked about this. He's the catalyst for Darius coming round to the idea of doing it in a sort of Jamaican way. You know, he was trying to copy the Swiss team. And it's Sanka that says, hey, maybe we do it our way, you know? Like, because again, he's the one who's the most confident in who he is, and I don't know if you would undercut that by making him change throughout the movie.
Such another amazing moment, you know, where they find Jamaica and adapt what they say before they go and how they arrive, and it's wonderful, man.
Yeah, no, it's a really good movie. It's a great movie. It's super fun. I think, you know, I think everyone involved should be super proud. I think it's a classic for a reason. It's a classic for a reason. Should we hit the triv, Chris?
Let's triv it up!
I'm going to give you some trivia. So, this is indeed based on a true story, but the true story is very different. So it was indeed inspired by pushcarts. So it was two American businessmen, whose names I did have in front of me, but I have misplaced. 1 second, sorry. What were they called? I've lost it. Of course I have. Why wouldn't it still be in front of me? George Fitch and William Maloney. They were two American businessmen that were living in Jamaica, and they were watching local pushcart derbies. And they had the idea because they thought it looked a lot like bobsledding. So they took the idea for a Jamaican bobsled team because they thought what a marketing opportunity that is, because it just sounds silly. To the country's Olympic Association, they got money to do it basically on their pitch. Not a lot, but some. They were able to go out and attempt to put it together. The problem was no one wanted to do it. None of the pushcart drivers, none of the athletes, none of the runners, no one wanted to do the damn thing. So what they did was they turned to the Jamaican army and recruited their bobsledders from the military. So none of the characters in this movie reflect the real people. All the characters are basically invented for the story of the film. I think for the better. They've got a good mix in this cast.
I'd agree.
Characters with different personalities and perspectives to create lots of fun drama and comedy, and I really like the group dynamic that this has. And also, we haven't talked about this, but the chemistry between this cast, incredible. Not just these aren't just good actors. This is a really good cast. Like, they work well together. So they went to the thing. They another key difference. They, as I mentioned earlier, that was that they were not bemoaned and belittled. They were welcomed into the sport. They were certainly very popular amongst particularly the American audience, who found the idea very charming. Part of me wonders it was a bit patronizing, but you know what? Screw it. They got a bunch of support, which is lovely. They were still on a shoestring budget though, and they did have to, they were actually, one of the ways that people often prove that they were not, being shat on from a great height by every other team was actually a lot of their equipment was lent to them by other teams. Other teams lent them parts for sleds and other stuff like that to keep them in the sport. They didn't have a lot of money. The other huge difference, and this one is the most disappointing because I hoped this part was true, they did not walk the sled over the line, as is depicted in the movie. There was a crash on their last run that did cost them any chance to even go home with a bronze, but it actually didn't crash because of a mechanical failure, as depicted in the film. It crashed because they just simply lost control of the vehicle, and that was the end of their run that year. And they didn't get to walk it over the line. So I'm a little bit sad that that's not what really happened, because it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. But it also goes to show how good the movie is that I kind of almost want real life to reflect that. But yeah, that's the real story of what happened and what this movie is based on. Considering how thin that is, it's pretty incredible that the movie is this, because they've really written most of this story. There is what I've gotten from my small amount of research.
Yeah, and did a fantastic job doing it. So yeah,
agreed. All right, let's flick through some of the other bits of trivia. We got some other good bits in here, Chris. So a number of directors were attached to direct this movie before John Turteltaub became the film's director. Directors who were attached prior were Brian Gibson, Jemiah S. Chechik, apologies for mispronouncing that, Fran Rubel Kuzi, and co-writer of the movie story Michael Ritchie, who also directed a movie called Downhill Racer in 1969 and The Survivors in 1983, but he was not interested in directing in the end because he found that very stressful and was only interested in producing. So obviously eventually we landed on Turteltaub, who I think did a great job directing this movie. Lots of really interesting shot choices, like you said at the end, particularly this shot to do from the perspective, the first person view. Really clever idea, brings you right into the moment with them. Lots of the shots are very cleverly chosen, actually, I'd say, in this movie. It's really well shot, so good work.
Shots like that we've mentioned, like the heads on the ice, the POV shot at the end where they part the crowd, all brilliant stuff.
Yes. Early drafts of the screenplay contained more drama than comedy. At one point, the movie was known as Blue Maga, and Brian Gibson was attached to direct. But according to someone called Tommy Swerdlow, who I think might have been a producer on this, Oh no, he's the writer. Sorry, Tommy Swerdlow is the writer. He says the only line in the film that he did not write was "Sanka, you're dead." That line came from an early version of the script when Brian Gibson was attached to direct. But he was saying basically he reworked the script completely. So Tommy Swerdlow is the guy responsible for putting the script together. So he says.
Fair play to him for admitting, like, oh yeah, by the way, one of the most popular parts in the movie that runs throughout the movie, that wasn't me. Like,
right, yeah.
Fair play to him for admitting that.
Yeah. So Disney originally envisioned the cast of this movie. I want to actually, before I say this, I want to tell you the budget for this movie quickly, Chris. You want to have a guess how much movie this money cost to make? Oh, sorry, I chose a poor time to ask. Sorry, I could hear you were drinking.
Yes,
I could hear once I stopped asking and it went quiet. I could hear you were drinking. I'm sorry. What do you think the budget was for this movie? If you were guessing,
I have no idea. For the time, see, I never know how to convert. 15 million.
Oh, you're pretty much there. 14 million, which is a very small amount of money. Nice. A very good guess.
Yeah. I basically in my head went. I literally went, well, Fantastic Beasts, a modern film, was 200 million. This is a good few years ago. How much is Kevin Smith making movies for now? And add a bit to that.
Amazing. Yes. So yeah, 14 million, which is not very much at all for a movie, even in that era. It made 154 million worldwide in the box office, and then has made a lot since through, licensing and reshowings and, all that jazz. And obviously DVD sales and all that, and probably through Disney Plus too. So with that in mind, their original intended cast, who they wanted to get on board, Chris, you'll appreciate this. Denzel Washington playing Doris, Eddie Murphy playing Sanka, Wesley Snipes as Yule, and Marlon Wayans as Junior. And they always wanted John Candy to play Irving. That was always.
Wow.
That was always the cast. Now, it won't shock you to discover that Denzel Washington and Eddie Murphy both turned down their roles because the pay was ridiculously low. So they then went down to Cuba Gooding Jr., Jeffrey Wright, and Eric LaSalle, who also decided not to go for it. I don't know if that's a combination of, it not working out, or if it's money. It's unconfirmed here as to why they didn't end up in the movie. And then we find, obviously, we landed on them, that we landed on the actors we ended up getting. Of course, two of the actors in the movie, it's their first feature film roles. Roll D. Lewis, who plays Junior, and Malik Yoba, who plays Yule. That was their first feature film roles. So they ended up going for quite I'd say close to an unknown cast. I assume to save money, basically.
It's amazing. It makes it even more when really John Candy is the only name. It's amazing how much money this film, how successful this film was.
Yeah, and I think it does say something as well. Because those Olympics were 88, right? This movie is written and turned around and released, 93, 94? Like, that's a pretty good turnaround for the story. I guess there was still public interest by then. It wasn't that long ago, so maybe that was part of it too. People were excited to see people were excited to see that story told in film, and they capitalized on it. Maybe that helps.
Yeah, for sure.
At the time, it was the highest-grossing live-action film released under the Walt Disney Pictures banner. So that was,
wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? For a live, that was their best performing live-action movie at that time.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, good news. In 2015, Dougie Doug, who plays Sanka in this movie, revealed he still has several of Sanka's lucky eggs, which were made of rubber. I love that.
Amazing.
I always love hearing what shit actors stole from sets.
He hid that egg and put it in his crotch really quickly on that last one. Like,
yeah, he's got it out, and then there's their bobsledding, and it's like 2 seconds between the shots. You're right. It's very quick. Yeah. Very sadly, this was the final film to be released before John Candy died of his heart attack. He died about 5 months after while filming a movie called Wagons East, which did get released, but got released, posthumous. I never can pronounce that word. Posthumously? I don't know. I can't pronounce that word. but post
I can
his
never pronounce it either.
death. So, that's I mean, obviously,
Huge loss to comedy, man.
I mean, look, huge loss to everything. It's so way too young, and way too talented. It's a cruel world. Is all I'll say on that one. Absolutely brutal. Just to think of the things we could have gotten, and it's a selfish thought, but I didn't know the man, so my sadness on his passing is obviously not going to be particularly personal. Obviously, he was a huge part of my childhood. Uncle Buck was a big one, as was this. But like, just the selfish thought of like, man, how many great movies could he have been in? How many great performances did he have left to give? Because it was a lot, right? So, salute to John Candy, an absolute master of his craft. Taken too soon, for sure.
For sure.
So, as I already mentioned, actual sports footage from the ABC network covering the '88 Olympics was utilised within the film and edited into the movie at multiple points, the most prominent being, of course, the crash scene at the end of the movie, which was all the real footage with the exception of the close-up shot. So the shot you referred to of the helmet scraping, that, I believe, is film, obviously, because you wouldn't have had a news camera in that position, and the rest of it being real footage of the bobsled crash. Ironically, they did have an Adidas or Adidas, whichever one you want to go for, sponsorship at the time, but their uniforms just had the word, not the logo, too. So you're only able to do this because they're in the bobsled and you can't see the full uniform. Otherwise, there would be a discrepancy between the in-movie uniform and the in-real-life footage uniform.
Oh, right. Oh,
well. Yeah. So, the movie... Oh, my God. You know, Chris, sometimes a movie has a different title in a different country, and it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, God.
In Norway, this movie is known as Cold Buttocks.
That is beautiful. Oh, that's amazing.
Never change, Norway. Never change. That's incredible.
That is fantastic.
A less exciting one, but also a very commonly cited one, is that in France, the movie is referred to as Rasta Rocket, which is fun. That's a fun title. Rolls off the tongue. Singer Jimmy Cliff's cover version of the song I Can See Clearly Now from the movie went into the top 40 in many countries when this movie came out, including the UK, France, and Canada. I think that's hilarious. During the filming of the Harry Potter movies, Daniel Radcliffe went through 160 pairs of glasses. That's good.
Please. I'm genuinely asking you to stop.
Stop what, Chris? It's a really interesting trivia about the movie Cool Runnings.
Just stop. That's me asking. Okay? I'm asking nicely.
Like.
I'll ask even nicer. Please stop.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, moving on with the rest of this trivia about Cool Runnings. 42 minutes into the film, the sound of a TIE fighter can be heard as the Swiss sled goes down the track. Now, I noticed that, and then thought I'd misheard and went, no, it can't have been. And then I saw it in the trivia and went, okay, I'm not a crazy person. Because I genuinely picked up on that and was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh no, someone's gone past the window watching something, or I've just misheard like a squealing, and it sounded a bit like that. But apparently it literally is the sound of a TIE fighter, so...
Yeah. Wow.
Cool. Bit of a weird one, but I'll take it. So, in January 2014, the Jamaican bobsled team qualified for the two-man bobsled in the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, in Russia. They described themselves as Cool Runnings, the second generation. In light of the team's qualifying, Dudley Stokes, one of the original 1988 team members and now Secretary of the Jamaican Bobsleigh Federation, said, I don't think the support for the team, like we've seen in the last 3 days, would have been sustained without the ongoing appeal of the movie. Basically, the love that the team gets in modern day is because they made a movie. And I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
But it's clear that the team receives a lot of extra funding these days. And I think a lot of it is love from the movie, Apparently they got funding this year from a cryptocurrency campaign as well through Dogecoin, which is really interesting. I don't understand how that happened, but yeah, they look, it's a fun sports team. we wish them the best, and if they keep getting funding because a fun movie was made about them, there's no victim in that situation. I don't think.
For sure.
Not unless the money starts like getting backwards pocketed and dodgy shite stops happening. As long as the money is supporting that team and doing all good stuff, I think that's a wonderful thing, and I'm very supportive. I think it's great. If people want to, throw a random bobsled team some money, I think that's nice. So I've got a piece of trivia I want to question, Chris, because I've heard this many a time, and I've had it repeated to me by people who go, "Oh, do you know that it's not actually the blah, blah, blah?" And every time I've gone, "Well, yeah, but that's not technically true, is it? Because there's obviously thresholds." So I'm going to read you the trivia, and I'm going to tell you why I think this trivia is bullshit.
Okay.
So I'm going to read it as it is. In the sport of bobsledding, adding weight to the sled is perfectly legal. In fact, sometimes it's a safety measure. Both 2- and 4-man sleds have a minimum and maximum weight. The weight of the sled is calculated as the total weight of the sled and its crew. If the fully loaded sled weighs less than the minimum, it is perfectly legal to add weight to make up the difference. Right. Yes, that is true. But if you sneakily add weight afterwards to make it go over the maximum, then that would not be legal. So
there's bound to be a limit there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a minimum and a maximum. That's how it works. So anyone who goes, well, it's actually legal to put weights in the thing. Yeah, in certain circumstances, correct, as long as the total weight of the sled. But what's implied in the movie is that he cheated. And the way it would be cheating is if he added weight to put it over the allowed threshold. Otherwise, it wouldn't be cheating. So if I hear one person tell me this movie is incorrect somehow as a result of that, you go fuck yourself. Because that's nonsense. That's just nonsense. So there you go. Oh, sorry. Chris, I nearly forgot. World famous segment. It's time for Cars Exist.
Meow.
So very quickly indeed, the police car they crash into is a Toyota Land Cruiser. Sanka's vehicle is a Volkswagen sedan. And the car that Junior sells in the beginning of the movie is a 1959 MGA 1600 Mark 1. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
It's a cool car.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a cool car. I don't know if I'd just allow the dog to lounge around on top of it, whether it's got a blanket underneath it or not.
Yeah, because he's polishing it in the shot, right? Like, isn't that what he's doing?
Yeah.
Like, if I was... look, I would let the dog sit on the car if I hadn't polished it in a week and I knew I was going to be doing it soon, but it doesn't really matter. Not mid-polishing. Two reasons. The fumes were probably not great for it.
Yeah.
But two, like, I don't want to polish a bit of the car and then have the dog slobber immediately on what I'm polishing. That doesn't sound good. Or put his paw on it and get mud on it or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Anyway, cool. Amazing movie. We're in agreement on that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we disagree on everything else, but the movie's amazing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Fundamentally, like, everything else, we disagree. But on Cool Runnings alone, we are united.
And all the great trivia. Glasses and all.
Nope. There's one piece of trivia that you can go fuck yourself for keep reading. But otherwise, in agreement.
I love that you really thought this was done.
No, I didn't. No. I have met you. I didn't think for 1 second it was done. But I'm upset by it, and I don't know the best way to approach it because I don't know the way that's gonna get you to stop, and that just makes me fear that there isn't one. Eventually we had to stop playing What Was Keenan's Plan. You got your way there, didn't you?
Well, I don't want to compare the two situations too much, but I will say What Was Keenan's Plan was a 10-minute segment every week that we had to plan and prep for, and you had to do research for, and then we had to play the game itself, and it took up a lot of time. This is about 10 seconds of every week, as long as you don't moan about it.
Yeah, just as annoying though, which is impressive.
Well, it's more concentrated.
Yeah, exactly. As much annoyance, but in a more concentrated space of time. Dan, tell the people where we're going next week, my friend.
So, it's a tough decision, this, but I where I landed, and a little peek behind the curtain. Chris already kind of knows where we're going with this, because we had to sort of, scheduling was really awkward this week, and we had to watch movies in advance and stuff. So I'm not going to force Chris to react surprised by pretend here, because that's he's not that good an actor. I've worked with him; it's fine. Kidding. I'm kidding. Chris is a wonderful actor. But anyway.
No. That's very fair.
I was thinking about it, and, sometimes we do stuff because of, like, SEO. Like, we did Predator because Prey was coming out, right? But at the same time, I wanted to do Predator. Like, I was going to watch Predator before Prey came out. I like that movie. It was always going to turn up on here. So whenever we do one of these, like, we're doing a movie because it matches something that's coming out, we'll only ever do that when it is something that we'd be doing on here anyway. We're never going to force ourselves to watch a movie we're not interested in doing on here because there's a sequel or a prequel or whatever coming out around the same time. Now, something I've been kind of fascinated about as we head into this year is the movie Avatar. There's a sequel this year.
This is brand new information.
There's a sequel coming out this year to the movie Avatar, the Blue Cat People movie, not Last Airbender. And I genuinely was confused, because what I've experienced is, amongst film fans, people are like, why is this happening? It's too late. I don't care anymore. Any enthusiasm for this is gone. What are they doing? But I've spoken to a lot of people, more casual film people, that are absolutely pumped for this movie. Lots of them. They exist. I can tell you from experience, people were turning up early to see Doctor Strange because they had the trailer for Avatar in front of it. And they want to see it on the big screen. So I think the sequel to this movie is going to be popular. Now, if the movie sucks, the third one will not be. But I think it's one of those things where absence maybe is, for some people, made the heart grow fonder. But I do think it's going to be very interesting, because a lot of people are about to rewatch the original. It's been quite a while. And very conveniently, Disney Plus have removed it in the build-up. Clever. They're re-releasing it in cinemas just to top up the gross box office for that movie. But they're doing some tweaks to the special effects and stuff. I've got the Blu-ray of the original, and I'm saying we watch Avatar and see, does it hold up? Because James Cameron came out recently and said something like, everyone's ragging on Avatar, but if they watch it again now, they'll see it's still a great movie. They liked it at the time. They'll like it. They've just not watched it recently. I'm not so sure that's true, Mr. Cameron. I think it was a dumb movie. So let's find out.
It's one of my favorite things that it is. It is one of. It was for ages the biggest selling movie of all time. It is again. Oh no, it is again. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. It's gone back up over. Mm-hmm. And yet people can barely name any characters from the movie. Mm-hmm. It's just one of my favorite things. Because it's just if the character names aren't memorable, then there's an issue. So, yeah,
and just to clarify, in case anyone's misinterpreting that, Chris doesn't mean that if the names in themselves aren't memorable. If you finish a movie and you can't remember the names of the characters, probably a sign that you weren't very invested in them.
Yeah, completely.
The only name I remember from that movie going into this rewatch is Jake Sully, the lead guy, and the only reason that is in my brain is because of the way it's delivered by Zoe Saldana. Yeah. Jake Sully. I can hear that in my head until the day I die, I think. Other than that, it's going to be, I think it's a fascinating rewatch. There's so many questions that need to be answered. Do the special effects hold up? Do special effects and good visuals make up for a lackluster story? Because my memory is the story not great. Like, so there's so many things left to be answered about this. So yeah, come back next week to find out how we feel about that. Because there's
I'm excited.
Yeah, and does it even need a sequel? Does it
Probably
even
not.
need a sequel?
Let alone 5.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's find out. Was it a bit of a freak one-hit wondery thing, or was there something more to it?
Yeah,
we'll see. So,
well,
yeah,
at least we enjoyed Cool Runnings. At least we got some respite.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't worry. My only hope with Avatar is that we don't. This is what we on. Oh, an hour and 45. Sweet, not bad. Still quite long actually, but not bad. My hope with Avatar is that we don't do the old 2.5 hour Harry Potter length, but we shall see.
I don't think we will.
Yeah, I'm hoping not.
I think the movies.
But yes, in the meantime, Dan.
The movie's too dumb for that. But let's take us home. So yeah, you can get us all the usual places. If you want to hear the Avatar review right now, head over to the Patreon, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic. Pay as little as $1 a month, and you get access to episodes of this and analysing Avatar 1 week early. We've got this season of Rewind reviews, and then we're heading back to the world of Avatar for Korra. Yes, Korra time is coming up by the end of this series, which I think will be around January, if I figured that out. End of January, we're coming into Korra time. Very excited about that. But yeah, we got a whole season of Rewind reviews ahead of you. 11 of these beautiful podcasts covering a range of movies. And as we've already teased, our trilogy this year, we do one trilogy every year. It's going to be the Santa Claus, but you'll get them a week early over there. Plus potentially some bonus podcasts. I need to tell Chris what my idea is for that actually at some point. They'll be very short, I promise, Chris. And I can genuinely promise that. And when you hear the premise, you'll know why.
I think you have told me. I can't remember it, but I think you have told me.
No, I teased we had one, and then we never actually had the conversation about what it was. I teased at the end of a podcast that we had potentially some exclusive content coming, and they never actually clarified with you because I've been meaning to for like a week.
I thought you had, but we'll see what happens when you tell me the idea.
So yeah, so that's all there. It's happening. If you'd like to interact with us and give us your feedback, you can do so through a number of methods. We're both on Twitter at Dan Doolan, at C Billingham. We're also got a joint joint one, although Chris doesn't really use it, I don't think. But Nothing But Static. At Nothing But Static without the G is the general Nothing But Static one. But if Twitter will not contain your thoughts, you have too many thoughts, you can either find the video for the relevant Nothing But Static, or the relevant Rewind review, and put your thoughts under that in the comments on YouTube. So it's youtube.com/nothingbutstaticuk, or you can send us an email, one of those things, mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk, for all your lengthy thoughts. Of course, if you join on the Patreon, you also get access to the Discord, where you can, send us your thoughts that way too. We do like to hear what you guys think. The other way in which you can support us is by telling a friend, continuing to listen yourself, or reviewing us on any platform that you so wish. Did you know, Chris, you can do it in-app?
Yeah.
You don't have to go to some website and log in. It's all just in-app.
Oh, you might as well do it now, people. You're on the app. Why not?
Yeah, just go there, give us a star, give us a like, give us a poke, give us a heart, give us a thumbs up, whatever review format your various podcast platforms use. You do that, it tells that platform you enjoyed the podcast, and then it makes them more willing to share it with others, which is a good thing for us. But if you're as always, if you hate this, just stop listening. That's my advice.
That's also fine.
Yeah, so yeah, thanks everyone so much. We really appreciate you guys being here. Welcome back. Obviously, it's really nice to be back for Rewind Reviews. Very excited to see what we do this year. We know the next sort of couple episodes, it seems, but because obviously through December we'll be doing the Santa Claus movies, but there's still plenty of room for some curveballs after that, so I'm excited to see what we're going to end up reviewing. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. I'm going to hand over to Chris because he does the ending on this one. Take it over, Chris.
Thank you very much. We are thrilled to be back, as Dan said, with Rewind Reviews. So thank you for being here too. My name's Chris Billingham.
My name's Dan Doolan.
And this review has been Rewound.